And now to talk to us about International Jazz Day and Indonesia's jazz scene itself, we have with us Mr. Sri Hanuraga, an Indonesian international jazz musician. Welcome. Now, for the first question, I would ask you, I guess UNESCO said that jazz can bring people together. Now, how do you see that happening in your experience?
It's because jazz itself is a music that absorbs many culture. So African culture, and then their pop culture, and then also now Asian culture, Latin culture, and yeah, because the jazz musician, they always seeks to push the musical boundaries. That's why they try to incorporate new things into their music.
All right, but Indonesia, what's the Indonesian jazz scene looking like when compared to other countries around the world?
Well, yeah, just like in any other countries, actually, jazz music has seen a decline in popularity. Actually, it's no longer the forefront of the popular culture anymore.
And why is that?
It's well, rock and roll came about in the 70s, but in Indonesia, it seems as if it's gaining more popularity because there are more and more jazz festivals all over the country. Although those jazz festivals doesn't necessarily involve jazz music actually in the festivals, they put mainly pop act, and yes.
So you're trying to say that these are pop artists playing jazz music instead of jazz musicians?
Not even. Most of the time it's just pop music. Yeah. But of course there are some jazz, a little bit of jazz artists in the festival, but with very little exposure.
Okay.
And this makes the public has a different understanding of jazz music actually.
All right.
Yeah.
And what about this perception of jazz in the Indonesian public? Does Indonesians understand what jazz music is and what needs to be done?
I mean, generally the public misunderstood some of the pop act as jazz acts mostly actually, most of the public, yeah.
Now, is that harming jazz musicians? I know this is a business as well, and you have to make money. How are jazz musicians making money in general?
Well, yeah, we still got to play in jazz festivals, but this is not as much. So we have to play in the club, and then we have also to teach also, and yeah, sometimes we even play for as a backup as a band for the pop musicians actually.
Right. Actually, I have a friend in San Francisco that came all the way here to Jakarta for the Java festival,
yeah,
just to become a backup, not a backup, for a background musician,
yeah,
just to get recognition. Now, what about as a career, jazz musicians? We talk about profitability, but what about it as a career itself? Are Indonesians looking at this as a respectable career, or what?
Yeah, more and more people start to see jazz musicians as a respectable career because since there are more and more music schools, and people see musicians that went to school to study in school differently. Yeah, so people get more and more respect.
Now let's talk about these music schools in Indonesia.
Yeah.
How do you look at it, and is it growing rapidly?
Yeah, actually there are more and more schools in Indonesia, and also in the university level there are some good schools where I teach also, like University of Pelita Harapan and Institut Musik Daya Indonesia. And yeah, they have good curriculums, good facilities. And also good teachers, because more and more young generations studied jazz abroad, and then they came back to Indonesia and to teach.
Okay,
yeah.
and that's fair enough. We know Joey Alexander as a child prodigy. He sort of like boosted jazz for Indonesia. But is that a reflection of the infrastructure of jazz music schools in Indonesia, would you say?
If you're talking about schools, actually that's not the case with Joey Alexander, because Joe is such a natural talent, and a huge talent actually, a very exceptional one in the jazz world. Very rare talent in the jazz history actually.
What about yourself? What did you go through in the past? Was school? Would you go to?
Well, I myself had some private lessons, among others with Indra Lesmana, and then I went to Farabi Music School, and then I continued my study. I got my bachelor and master's degree at the Conservatorium van Amsterdam.
That's actually good. You actually have a master's degree in music,
Yeah.
so I respect that. What about, I remember reading about you starting to go to piano because of this Indra Lesmana person. You did guitar before. Tell us about that.
Well, actually, I switched to piano not because of Norah Jones, but because of this keyboard wizard called Keith Emerson. He is like the leader of this band called Emerson, Lake and Palmer, progressive rock band from the 1970s.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I got into piano, and then later I found out that he actually listened to a lot of jazz. That's when I started checking out jazz too.
Now, was it easy to you to convince your family to allow you to become a musician? What is it in your case?
In my case, it's not so difficult because my father himself was a musician. So and yeah, he did study music abroad, and yeah, so he know how it feels.
So it's easy for you, I guess.
Yeah.
But what about like others? Maybe you have friends that find it difficult to convince their family to, hey, I want to do music. It's not profitable, but I want to do it.
Yeah, well, yeah. For most people, it's more difficult to convince their parents. Some of my friends, they had to finish another study before they actually can study music. Yeah.
All right. I told you about Norah Jones before, and people will ask me, what kind of jazz musicians do you like? And I would say, Norah Jones, and they would laugh at me. Why is that? Is it because she's more pop and more mainstream instead of true jazz music? Is that why?
Well, yeah, Norah Jones has some jazz elements. It's certainly there's some jazz in it for sure. Yeah, I can call it jazz, like easy listening jazz. But yeah, there are more serious type of jazz, like more serious music. Like yeah, you mentioned like Herbie Hancock, for example, among others, Brett Mehldau, you know, those kind of people. Yeah.
All right. So where will we see you performing next?
Well, it's not soon in Indonesia. Well, next month I will be going to Poland, Italy, and Latvia for a tour to release a new album with my band in Poland, the Backpack, and yeah, not in Indonesia soon.
And tell us a little bit about your newest album.
Well, I had another album that I just released in last November. It's called To the Universe. It's basically the result of my research in Javanese gamelan music. Mm-hmm. Well, it got some awards like from JGTC Festival and from Tempo magazine, and then now I'm working on another album with Dira Sugandi, one of my favorite singers, and the album will be a compilation of Indonesian songs, like with some jazz flavor.
Now, quickly before we go, what's the government sort of doing to support jazz as of now in the modern age?
As of now, actually, nothing. Actually, yeah, jazz musicians here are pretty much doing everything by themselves. Actually,
if you were in the government, what would you do to support awareness and everything else?
I don't know, create a cultural center, for example, and promote jazz and make their own jazz festival. Support. Well, actually, Jakarta has had like this jazz at Kota Tua like the last 2 years. Yeah. Well, that's what
for the last 2 years.
Yeah, for the last 2 years. Yeah, that's I think the first government. I think.
Okay, that's something.
Yeah, that's something.
Right. But you think there's more that can be done, of course.
Yeah. Maybe on TV, maybe.
Okay, maybe a program on TV.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Aga, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Albert.
Appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thanks.